Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for gathering us all here in the community. We pray that you watch over the departments, service, fire, police, and then pray that the Lord for you. Amen. Public hearing. Right. So, Mr. President.
Here.
Mayor.
Here.
Here. Mr. Rupel. Mr. Scholes.
Here.
Mr. Smolik.
Here.
Mr. Ziegler.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Smolik. The purpose of a tax budget, I provided a memo to council regarding this, and I will just read directly from the memo that was provided. The purpose of a tax budget, it provides the information necessary for the county auditor to set a property tax rate for next year. In 2023, the millage request will be 3 mills inside without a vote and 8.05 mills outside, which would be voted. Failure to pass the tax budget results in 0 property taxes for 2023, property tax revenue, I should state. Local government revenue is also based on the completion of the tax budget. It allows the county auditor to provide Kirtland with a certificate of estimated resources, which limits the amount of money council can approve and appropriate for the year 2023 and avoiding negative fund balances. The tax budget does not appropriate any funds for next year. It provides a revenue base for the appropriations that will be approved by council in 2023. The city of Kirtland has a long history of spending the levied funds within each calendar year with little left in reserve. It continues to be a strong position to improve on the end of the year reserves to operate with those reserves in the first quarter of each fiscal year. This allows time for the mayor and council to discuss the budget and to review operations from prior year. There's a 0% change in local government funding in this tax budget that has been presented to council. We did have an increase in real property taxes from 2021 to 2022. Lake County performed a triennial update on all property for tax year 2021. As a result of this update, the city is estimated to receive an increase of approximately 9.5% in general fund property tax revenues for 2022. For the 2023 tax budget, which is on the agenda this evening, an increase of 2% in additional property tax revenues is estimated based on current market conditions and new development. Finally, the tax budget is an important document, and the focus is on the year 2023's estimated revenue from property taxes for the payment of debt only. And that concludes my report on the tax budget, and I'm available for any questions.
At this time, if the public has any questions for Mr. Slapnicker or the administration pertaining to the tax budget for 2023.
Louis, the 9.5% equated to about $40,000, correct?
The 9.5%, it was around, did you say 49,000?
40,000.
It was around 50,000, I believe. Yeah. This year it's estimated at $805,000 in the general fund.
Any questions from the public? Moving on, reading and approval of the minutes of
Mr. Smolik, just exactly. We just need to close that public hearing.
the public hearing for the tax budget for fiscal year 2023. All right, to move forward. Reading and approval of minutes from May 31st, 2022 work session. Motion.
Motion to adopt. Okay, we'll try again. Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, roll call, Mr. Fenstermaker,
Here. Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Abstain.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Minutes of the May 31st, 2022 special council meeting. Motion to approve.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Abstain.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Minutes of the June 6th, 2022 work session.
Second.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes, Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Abstain.
Minutes of the June 6th, 2022 council meeting.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler.
Abstain.
With that, we come to department reports. Chief Hutton.
Thank you. Couple things to report. As I stated earlier in the finance meeting, we still continue to be very busy. We've actually done 26 emergency calls since Friday. Only 2 of them were at the Strawberry Fest. So we've been extremely busy. With the hot, dry weather and windy over the weekend, there were quite a few brush fires throughout Lake County. One of the big ones along the tracks in Wickliffe, Willoughby, Willowick. We responded over to that. Strawberry Festival and the 5K were pretty uneventful for us. We're getting ready for Wonderstruck, and tomorrow we start our mass casualty 3-day event up at Lakeland College. Other than that, I'm open for any questions.
Any questions from council? Thank you, Chief. Chief McAllister?
Thank you, Councilman Smolik. Just coming off of my first Strawberry Festival here, I wanted to touch on some of the things that I was assisted with since I've been out for the past couple weeks. Sergeant Fisher, Sergeant LaTurner did an excellent job coordinating all the events and putting in place the department personnel for security at the festival, as well as additional road coverage. I just want to thank Holden Arboretum, the Lake Metro Parks, Waite Hill Police Department, Kirtland Hills, and Willoughby Dispatch for all of their efforts. The parade wouldn't have been possible had these agencies not been involved with the road closures going through the city. In terms of everything else, Lake County Mass Casualty Drill, we're going to push the whole police department through that just as a learning experience. I think it's very important, especially with the events in Uvalde, that these things are always changing, and we got to take every opportunity we can to train and try to learn how to handle these incidents the best way that we can. And then finally, in the hiring process, we just sent one of our applicants in for his physical, and barring the results of that, we'll be going forward with the job offer. And that concludes my report. I'm open for any questions.
Any questions from council? You look like you're doing it. To Joe Fernaro.
Good evening, everyone. I'm usually very long-winded, but I'm going to be short. No formal report tonight, but happy to say that we'll be opening our road bids tomorrow. I'm open for any questions.
Question from council?
Mr. Fernaro and Mr. Courtney, first I want to thank you for the quick response regarding the inquiry on Billings Road. I do have one follow-up question. the hole that we're talking about, divot, whatever we want to call it. You mentioned that Mr. Fernaro will patch that, but what about the surveyor that dug it up? Why are they not being responsible for that?
Generally, as normal practice, when we dig up a monument in the street, we put the material we dug out back in, just as speaking from the surveyor's profession, right? Don't know if they did that, but I suppose we could contact them, but we're not sure what surveyor it was. So it may have been, I know there was a survey done up on Dorchester too. So I don't know which surveyor did that. But I can reach out and find out. I mean, it's a handful of asphalt, so
It's the principle for me, though.
understood.
And then the next question, the ditch and then the side of the road that got damaged. I saw your report on that, but how is that going to be handled?
That'll go on a deficiency list for the subdivision, and we will not accept the improvements from an engineering standpoint until that is repaired. So until they repair that, we won't accept it, and therefore it would never come to you if they don't fix it.
Okay, thank you.
Doug, I mean, we anticipated some of these things to happen, I think, right after the Billings was done and they went into that location. So there was, I suspect, some plans set up that they knew that we're going to be watching closely what was going on the road.
Yeah, they know we're watching closely. We had them do a pre-construction video, so we have a video of the entire roadway prior to them starting their construction.
They also have a road bond, correct?
Right, yeah, we increased their road bond as well.
Any other questions? And actually, on to you, Mr. Courtney, even though you started already. Any reports?
Thank you. As Joe mentioned, the street project bids will be open tomorrow morning at 11. We expect a contract award recommendation before council at the July 6th meeting. So more to come on that. Old Town sewer improvements. Got word last week that all the deed restrictions, about 12 properties, have been signed by all appropriate parties, and they were supposed to be filed last week. Haven't gotten confirmation that they're actually recorded, so I will wait on that. 2 easements we need for the construction of the project have been agreed upon by the homeowners. We have 1 signed easement in hand. The other one should be shortly. And we have a meeting with the Department of Utilities on Wednesday, the 22nd. So this Wednesday to discuss the final submittals. And we'll probably be setting the public hearing date at that point. So more to come on that as well. Stormwater projects. Funding requests for the following projects were submitted to the Lake County Stormwater Department. Fox Hill Drainage Improvements, which is part of the street rehabilitation program. The estimate for that work is $73,070. The Rockwood Area Stormwater Basin, the estimate for that one is $69,100. And the Parkwood Area Drainage Improvements, that estimate is about $350,000. MOUs with the county will be presented at a future meeting once we get them all in hand from the utility department or from the stormwater department. Parks Farm subdivision, contractor's been busy. He's got most of the storm sewer in and a good portion of the water main. And legislation tonight, 22R36 is authorizing the remainder of our design fee for the street rehabilitation program. So if you recall, our initial request was for $65,000, which got us to having the bid book ready to advertise. That was advertised earlier this month, and the balance of those fees would go to the bidding and negotiating phase, contract administration, the survey work we did for Fox Hill for the drainage portion of that project, and construction inspection. we have an invoice in that exceeds the current encumbrance. So if we could pass that tonight, that would be helpful.
Mr. Courtney,
20
that would be 22R36 and then also 3738. Do you, that's just kind of closeout work on those?
Not 37 or 38. Those are closeouts from previous contracts that I would request at least go 2 readings.
What Lewis said. That concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Mr. Courtney, relative to the bid opening tomorrow, would you share with council the bidders and their amounts, or would you do that at award?
We do that with the recommendation of award letter, but I can share as soon as we have the bid tabulation ready, or I can even get the unofficial bid results to the mayor and he can distribute if necessary. Then we'll tabulate the bids and check and make sure everyone's bid was responsive and do a full bid tab. That'll come with our recommendation of award.
And you read off the drainage projects. When do you expect that? You first, you got to get the fundings from stormwater, but when would you expect to advertise that?
Once the funds come in from stormwater, with the exception of Fox Hill, because that one's already designed. We designed that with the road program. The Rockwood area and the Parkwood drainage, once the funds are in from stormwater, that'll provide the dollars for us to design those jobs. So,
You're not looking at even a fall sale for that, you don't think?
pardon?
A fall sale?
Yeah, we could probably get those out in the fall.
I'm just asking. I said I was taking notes. I didn't know if you had
Yeah.
thrown out a date for the sale of those.
No, I did not put out any dates for those.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Courtney? Mr. Slapnicker?
Thank you, Councilman Smolik. Earlier this evening, we had our first Finance Committee meeting that we took a look at the high-level review of the revenues and expenditures this point through May 31st, 2022. We also dug into some of the details on both the revenue and expense side. As mentioned, we did submit our first request to the Lake County for our senior levy reimbursement. We're starting to wrap up the audit. Hopefully we'll have that concluded here within the next few weeks. We do have a resolution for the tax budget on the agenda this evening that I would request be passed this evening so that we can get it off to the county. And Councilman Schultz, just to clarify, I did pull up our certificate of estimated resources between 2022 and 2021, and the increase in the property tax for the general fund is $70,000. Okay. Lastly, we do, as mentioned, the engineer's report. There are 2 items on the agenda for closeout, resolution 22R37 and 22R38 for closeout with Roniak Paving, and I would request those go 2 readings. That concludes my report, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions from council? On to Mr. Lallo.
Thank you, Mr. Smolik. I don't have too much to report on today. The only request I would have is 22-0-34, which is the fireworks legislation. I did have a chance to discuss this with Chief McAllister. He does ask that this be passed today. If you waive 3 readings, it's a second reading today. The reason for that is our next meeting is not until after the 4th of July. And part of this, the new law that goes into effect would go in contrast with what the purpose of this ordinance. So we would ask that be passed today. Aside from that, I don't have too much to report on unless you have questions for me.
Any questions? Nope. Ms. Zeri, would you like to give a report on Rock Department?
Thank you, Chief. So Life at the Senior Center is the place to be. If you haven't been there, then you should come join us. We just crunched some numbers to send over to the county. And so far, as of last week, we've had over 100 brand new members this year. So we're over 500 members, over 100 of which have been new since January. So we're very excited to meet them. Today, we had our first annual ever pickleball tournament using our new courts. So I think that will be discussed a little bit further. The mayor did not win, but it was a valiant effort. So we're doing new things all the time, and encourage everyone to check out our newsletter on both our website and the city website for any upcoming events. Would love to see council and any department heads whenever you're able to join us. I am open for any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Zeri. Eddie Eckert?
Good evening, everyone.
Sure.
So last week, we, along with planning and zoning, met with a consultant to potentially help with the comprehensive plan. And we are awaiting a proposal from her for that. Essentially, she would help quarterback and facilitate some of the discussion, and the two of us would then work together to incorporate any changes with planning and zoning. So we expect to hear back from her within the next 2 weeks.
I would say within a day or two, yeah.
Within a day or two. Okay, so stay tuned on that. With regard to a couple of sewer projects, this may have been mentioned since I've been here last, but Congressman Joyce's community project funding request, we submitted an application for $821,000, just shy of that, and that was included on his list of projects that he's supporting. I wish I could tell you exactly when we are going to know whether that becomes fully funded. I submitted one of these last year. We were told last year in April, we were told we were going to hear by September. We didn't hear till this spring. So it's possible that we could hear about funding for this as early as September, but it may take a little longer than that. We all know that the federal budget is always a fun thing to watch. Also, with regard to sewer and other infrastructure issues, I've set up a meeting with a staffer from Senator Brown's office who's going to meet with Mr. Courtney, Mr. Fornaro, and the mayor and myself coming up. So looking at other opportunities to supplement funding that way for the sewer, to talk about funding to the south as well, also addressing other infrastructure opportunities there. I've met with a couple of developers who are interested in a number of things in Kirtland. They wish to remain anonymous at this point, but had a couple of meetings so far with both of them. We have another one scheduled for next week. So I hope in the relatively near future to be able to share more details about that. With regard to business engagement, I met with Karen Tursek at the chamber, and we're going to work on planning towards the third quarter of this year something in Kirtland to help with business engagement and make sure that anything that we can do for existing businesses is addressed. So that's the content for this month.
Good evening, Ed. Thanks for your update. You mentioned $800,000 funding potentially from the federal government for the sewer project.
Yes.
How did you derive that number? How does that work?
Sure. So the Old Town Sewer Project, and feel free, Doug, to hop in if I state any of this incorrectly. It's a 3-year project, and the federal dollars for community project funding have to be spent in that year. So what we did is we broke down what the first year cost of the project was going to be, and then we have a match component. And you had already secured OPWC dollars. Is that what it was?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. So the idea is that we would use those dollars as the match to the federal funding, and that's how we arrived at the $821,000.
Good answer. And then I suspect we could potentially run this up the flagpole next year again, or no?
Yes. So if we are successful, There's obviously multiple years of this project, so we can run it up the flagpole. If we're not successful, then yes, we absolutely can do it. I will say that in talking with a couple of different legislators' offices, sewer infrastructure projects are by far the most requested projects in the state of Ohio. It's just, we have old cities and we have old infrastructure. So it's a little bit of a challenge to get to the top of that pile, but I'm hopeful that we have a good chance with this one.
Mr. Eckert, do you find that it's cities that have the combined sewer tend to be a little bit more successful in grant dollars?
If only for their need being a bit more dramatic, but I say it that way, I guess I would articulate it like this. EPA mandated projects tend to get more attention, and combined sewer overflow is one such EPA mandate. Now, we happen to have an Ohio EPA mandate for the Old Town Sewer project, so I don't ever want to promise something, but that's always helpful when there is a mandate involved and you're pursuing dollars.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Eddie, if you can keep me involved with the meeting with the chamber.
Yes.
What was her name?
Karen Tursik.
Yeah, because as a local business owner, I want to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Will do. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert.
Mhm.
Mayor Potter.
Thank you, Councilman Smolik, and thanks to Mr. Eckert for coming on out and giving us a pretty thorough and comprehensive, good update. Strawberry Fest thank yous. So thanks to the Kirtland Kiwanis, another very, very successful event, Strawberry Festival event. Thanks to the Lord above for the great weekend of weather outside of the Friday night windstorm that we had that had about, 10 of us, Mike, or so up there around 6:45 Saturday morning to kind of pick up the pieces. Anyhow, great event as always. Thank you to our service, police, fire for all they do to make that happen. Thanks to every other organization that participates in the festival itself and in the parade. This parade just keeps getting bigger and bigger every year. I just can't say enough about this community and the response and the Kiwanis engagement. I did have a chance to enter into the Strawberry Shortcake Eating Contest with 4 other local mayors, myself, Mayor Sakis from Willoughby, Gardner from Willoughby Hills, Mayor Morley, Mayor Regovich. Mayor Fiala was under the weather that day, so we couldn't make it. But I think 3 of us had 2 complete in 2 minutes, 2 shortcakes complete in 2 minutes. And Mayor Morley, I think, barely got 1. And then Mayor Gardner got nearly 3 done in 2 minutes. So he's the reigning champion coming into next year. Thanks to Tim Misney for coming out and emceeing the event for us that night. And then I had a chance to participate again on Saturday night. And I actually watched a gentleman eat 5 strawberry shortcakes in the allotted time. Now, what I'll say is the allotted time on Saturday night was 3 minutes, but this fella had close to 4 done in 2 minutes, and certainly by 2 minutes and 20 seconds. It was unbelievable. Congratulations to Councilman Schultz's daughter for being selected as Miss Kirtland for the Strawberry Festival. Quite an honor. And then then on Saturday we had the historic 5K. First time that we've had a 5K run as part of the festival, and thanks to the LDS Church for bringing that back. Teresa, 150 or so, 115. Okay, felt like so probably 115 beat me. So I was probably about 116 in the race. Anyhow, a lot of fun. Thanks to them. We continue to engage with our local churches, LDS. Special thanks. I don't know if I mentioned it last month, but we did get a $1,000 donation from both Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as well as Divine Word. You see our flower baskets along 306, and they both committed $1,000 to that effort. So thanks to the service department for keeping those vibrant and fresh with daily waterings. And then this morning was our senior pickleball tournament, which I was invited to, and went 4-2. Mr. Vinciquera was the champ, I believe, 6-0 in the morning round. But I can tell you this: if you haven't gone up there and played, number one, if you haven't gone up there to look at the courts that Mr. Finaro and the service department put together, and thanks to Mr. Courtney last year for doing the surveying, and the contractor last year for donating the materials. If you haven't had a chance to look at the courts, I mean, they are just astounding. And so, but with the seniors, I've got to tell you, they are competitive and they are good. My goodness. I mean, so if you can get up there and see the courts, do it. And if you can get up there and play, I got to go out and get myself a paddle, and then I'll be ready to take on whoever. So on to the ordinances for the evening, some of the legislation. I'll bounce back to 22-0-33. We had the law director mention that the 22-0-34 comes with a request from the police chief, and I'm imagining the fire chief, because we've had the discussion before, to pass this ordinance tonight. This would prohibit the fireworks in the city of Kirtland for those 13 days that the state legislature last year gave cities the latitude to allow for fireworks on those days. So I would ask that city council pass this by emergency tonight to get ahead of the 4th of July holiday coming up. Imagine there will be a little bit of discussion there. As far as Lewis talked about the tax budget, and then on 22-R-35, I would ask that we can get Mr. Courtney caught up and ready to move ahead with the road program. Back to the second reading for the ordinance providing the city council to enable the community, the residents of the community, to come together in the fall and hopefully support a tax initiative that would help fund a long-term solution for our road funding. So I know that at the very end of our last special meeting for road funding, I think the number was 0.35 by several, or a lot of council here. And I think that was a great place to start, because it enables us to use that as a ceiling and work backward from there. And I think after a lot of discussion with community members, I mean, we really truthfully throughout the whole dialogue, we talked about 0.25 or 0.3 at the ceiling. And so I think my opinion is that I would like to see this amended this evening to that 0.25% versus that 0.35. Again, after discussion around the community, looking at, we heard from the finance director tonight that we have some potential changes in our income tax dollars that we receive as a result of some of the stay-at-home working, work from home. So I think we are poised at 0.25 to execute a really, really strong road program that our residents and community can trust here for the future. So we talked about through the process, looking back 10 years, we had about a 25% income tax increase over the last 10 years. And if you extrapolate that out in 30 years, we'd be looking at, I think what we figured out, $1.4 million per year, something along those lines. So over 30 years, if you extrapolate that 25% growth over 10 years, again, these numbers they're not hard, right? But over 30 years, I think you're looking at about 35 million. So with what we know we need to get done with our roads, and the other thing, we all talked about the income tax over the property tax. The income tax allows you to do, well, you can account for that growth, right? And with that growth, we can rely on that to do some of our front-loaded construction over the first, 2, 3, 5 years to get kind of back to even with our road program, so we can then start implementing and being maintenance heavy, going out past years 7, 8, 9, 10. So anyhow, that's my request from council tonight, that you strongly consider amending that ordinance to 0.25% versus that 0.35. And beyond that, I am open to any questions.
Any questions for Mayor? On to standing committee reports. Any standing committee reports? We did have a finance committee, 6 o'clock till 6 35 this evening, and I don't believe we have any outstanding committees scheduled. On to correspondence, I see no correspondence. Mr. Lella, was there any correspondence?
None that I'm aware of.
Public comments on matters not on the agenda. I believe we had a couple people from Kiwanis that wanted to speak.
If you can, just please state your name and your address. Thank you.
Yes, Mike Sams, 9120 Prelog Lane. I am the president-elect of Kiwanis. I wanted to come here and thank council and the administration for all the help that they give us during the Strawberry Festival. I mean, Rich Lowry was there doing electrical. He was up on the roof doing the tents and helping out at the tear down and the setup of the festival. Ron was there getting dunked by my wife, serving in the food tent, and the sponsor of the Strawberry Festival. Mr. Smolik is always around helping, setting up tents, whatever he needs to do, running to get ice cream on a Saturday night for 18 gallons when we're running out. So he's always there, and he's always willing to help out. Scott Hamer was seen at the festival. And I asked several people what in fact does he actually do there, and even though we didn't get a definitive answer, most people just shrugged their shoulders and said, I saw him, but I don't know what he does. So we thank you for everything you do in Campbell Plumbing, Scott. Mr. Ziegler, thank you very much for being a donkey and getting some of the football players to help us, because us old guys, we can't handle heavy equipment and things like that, for being a sponsor. And being the only one in Kirtland to block Tom Meyer from your phone. So a lot of us thank you for that. Mr. Mayor, you were there for setup, you were there for tear downs, you were there Sunday all day, you were there at 6 a.m., actually 6 o'clock, calling me in the morning and telling me tents are down and getting me out of bed after 10 or 12 hours the day before. But had a bad week, lost pickleball, lost in the 5K run, lost in the strawberry eating contest. But we appreciate all you do for us and your administration and your lovely wife, who now hates me for being in the dunk tank for an hour.
Hate's a strong word, Mr. Sams.
Mr. Courtney, thank you. Your company, Tim Courtney Group, for being a sponsor every year. Joe's whole family, or just about all the family, came and helped us out in the food tent. We really appreciate everything you did. I had this written down, but I don't need the notes. Chief McAllister for putting on some extra patrols for us and helping us out. Although you did have your surgery in a very, so you didn't have to go in a dunk tank. So that was very smart of you, but you can't have surgery every year. So next year you will be in the tank. Chief Hutton, thank you very much for being in a dunk tank, although your suit was still on the fence for like 4 hours getting all the water out. But again, we had a very successful Strawberry Festival. Did I miss somebody? Oh, Julie, Teresa, another person that hates me for being in a dunk tank, but she did have a bodysuit on. I have great pictures, so if anybody wants to see pictures of Teresa going down quite a few times, and she told me nobody's going to dunk me. And I proved her wrong, because I told her I had $50 that said there's going to be a lot of people that dunk you. So, right, Teresa? But then again, I just want to thank everybody in council, administration. Without you guys, we couldn't do this. Especially the service department and the police and the fire. Everybody here in council, especially Councilman Lowry, who he's got to be as tired as I am from the Strawberry Festival and knowing it's over. So, thank everyone. Yeah, we tried to give him less in his bowls than everybody else, but I think a couple of the mayors called us on it, and we had to actually give him as much as everybody else. But,
Yeah, it wasn't for a lack of trying.
yeah.
By Mike and Mary.
But we tried to give a hometown advantage to the mayor, and but he has some tough competition. You hit some big boys up there.
Well, I would like to thank you and your wife, Mary, specifically. I know so many in Kiwanis do so much, but you guys have been an unbelievable addition to this, to the Kirtland Kiwanis, and I don't think you're ever not at something or organizing something or shaking down businesses or families for money for sponsorship. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks, everybody.
Mike,
Thank you, Mike.
before,
Thank you.
before you go, just, we're going to draw straws on you in the dunk tank for next year.
On me being in Duncan?
Absolutely, because I've got a list that I've put together on a few individuals that I
Of
have.
people that hate me in Kirtland, that want to
Nope,
dunk me?
nope, nothing to do personal, just me. But I also want to make sure you did miss Matt. He did serve in the food tent and helped out also. So
Yes, I'm sorry, I did miss you, and yes, he was in the food tent quite a lot, and I apologize, Councilman Schultz, and he's also a sponsor. But yeah, Matt
we
was
had a
there
great
with us.
time. But I'm telling you, you're on the list for the dunk tank next year. You, the mayor's going to go extra.
Well, the mayor and Jen Potter both are going to be. Oh, and definitely Teresa is going to be back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Yes, correct. The community, and again, I didn't mention everybody, the community and the PTA, everybody that helped us put it on. We didn't have rides again this year, so we had to have a lot more help. Every community, the football moms, PTA, the swim team, every team that we could get helped us out at the dunk tanks, helped us out with putting it together, and naturally the whole community. I mean, fantastic to support of the community. So I think you're right.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson.
Councilman Smolik, I did forget to bring it. Wednesday night, we have a concert here at the gazebo sponsored by the Friends of the Library. And we're hoping to see some local businesses come out and set up a booth or a table. I think Teresa put another outreach to the community through Facebook today. And I know it comes on the heels of the Strawberry Festival. People might be a little bit, worn out, but the concert's a great, relaxing time. We're also going to be cooking burgers, dogs, those kinds of things again, just like last year.
That's
So
6 or 7 of that starting? Is that 7 o'clock starting? 6.
food starts at 6 and concert at 7. Yes.
Mayor, do you know the venue?
Here. Oh, I'm sorry. The Angola. I expect you to see you up
Thank
there
you.
dancing, Mr. Schultz. The big band, swing dancing.
Right. at the
Thank you,
dunk
Mayor. tank. Any other public comments on matters not on the agenda? Please. Okay, on to old business.
Cut me off. Nick Angie, 8013 Gildersleeve. First, I'd like to say that the positive energy when I walked in today was just awesome. Haven't seen that for a while, so that was great. I got a call from my neighbor today. She wrote a letter and I read it and I said, would you mind if I share this at the meeting tonight? And she was like, absolutely. So, Mr. Joe Finaro in Service Department, just a little note. This is in cursive, so please give me some credit. I haven't read that since 3rd grade. Just a little note to let you know what a wonderful job you and your men do for our great city of Kirtland. The cemeteries look wonderful and are well taken care of. Downtown Kirtland is just beautiful. The flowers are gorgeous, and the hero flags warm my heart. What a tribute to our hometown hero men. Thank you again for all your hard work. P.S. Wonderful job snow plowing. Top notch. Stay safe. God bless. Miss Cindy Gum. I don't take much credit for this, but over the last year, I started with Joe to a whole new group of people. And, I'd like to think of us as the Florida Marlins, now the Miami Marlins. It's not going to take us long to be the best and win the championship. So the group of guys I work with have taught me more as a professional firefighter. Joe, the guys, even to the youngest new full-timer, have taught me more than I could ever imagine. And I'm just very, very proud to be with these guys and Joe. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Any other public comments? Okay, on to public comments on the agenda items of old business. Public comments? Ordinance 22033, 22034, and 22035. No public comments. Ordinance, going to old business, ordinance number 22033. Need to amend it from 0.35 to 0.25. In the second reading. And we start this from the second reading, or do we need to go 3 from this reading, amending it down?
So you'll first read the title, and then you'll entertain if there's any motions.
An ordinance providing for the submission to the electorate of the city of Kirtland, Ohio, a proposal to amend the charter of said city by amending Article 6, Taxation, Section 1, Prohibition of Excessive Income Tax, and declaring an emergency. Any discussion on it?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the percentage from 0.35 to 0.25.
Any discussion on that motion? Right. So
that will be amended then for the roll call, Mr. Lello.
okay. Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, so now it's been amended to the 0.25. So why don't it goes back to second reading. So why don't you reread it and for posterity's sake?
Okay. An ordinance providing for the submission to the electorate of the city of Kirtland, Ohio, a proposal to amend the charter of said city, amending Article 6, Taxation, Section 1, Prohibition of Excessive Income Tax, and declaring an emergency. Ordinance number 22034, an ordinance amending codified ordinance section 672.10 relating to fireworks and declaring an emergency. I believe we wanted to waive the third reading, Mr. Lello?
That would be correct.
Need a motion to waive the third?
Motion to declare an emergency?
There would need to be a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Motion waive 3 readings.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Lello? Any discussion on that? Roll call,
Okay.
please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler.
Yes.
Motion to declare an emergency and adopt?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Abstain.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, passed by 5.
Okay, on to resolution number 22R35, a resolution adopting a tax budget for the fiscal year 2023. That was what we had the previous public discussion on earlier in the meeting. So we needed to waive the 3 readings, I believe, on this one. I think I should say.
Yeah, I would request that it be passed this evening so I can get it to the county.
Motion to waive the third reading?
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes. Motion to adopt?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler.
Yes.
Yeah, new business on the agenda. It's time for public comments on agenda items of new business. Public have any comments? Resolution number 22R36. Resolution authorizing the mayor to retain the services of C.W. Courtney Company as engineers for the construction administration of the 2022 street repair and maintenance project and declaring an emergency. Mayor, I believe you wanted this to waive the three, so Mr. Courtney,
Yes, so we can get moving on the, well, yeah, get caught up on some invoices and then ultimately get moving on the road program.
especially the bids going in tomorrow, right, correct?
Correct.
Motion to waive the three readings?
Motion, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yeah.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler.
Yes. Motion to declare an emergency and adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Lallo.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 22R37, resolution authorizing the closeout of the contract with Roniak Paving, Inc. for its work on Emerald Glen Court pursuant to the 2020 pavement rehabilitation project, Section 1, and declaring an emergency. We'll go to
That
a
is
sec-
correct.
I will go to a second reading. Resolution number 22R38, a resolution authorizing the closeout of the contract with Roniak Paving, Inc. for its work on Phase 2 of the Booth Road resurfacing and declaring an emergency. On to council comments.
One of the things that I wanted to talk with council, and I know we set our schedule early on, and on this, in this council session, but because today is a federal holiday, that's something we might want to look at next year, moving it to the subsequent Wednesday, but I wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any other council comments?
Although I'm no longer a councilman, I'd like the floor for one more minute if that's possible. Okay, so first of all, thank you to everybody for the great discussion throughout the road financing funding discussion here. A couple of special meetings, I know it was a lot of work. Thanks to Joe and Doug and Lewis, especially for all of their hard work, all the great questions to get to where we're at tonight. Along the way, we discussed a resolution, Mr. Lallo, that would be concurrent with the passage of this ordinance, which the hope and anticipation is that this will pass at the third reading on July 6th. And so with that, I'm going to ask the law director to create a resolution that basically says, should this pass in the fall, those dollars will be committed to road funding only. And we can talk about some of the specifics in there that we want, but this, we want to guarantee our community that this isn't going to be going to equipment and those kinds of things. We want to spend this on what it's going to take to fix our roads. So, want to bring that up and just again thank all of you guys for what you've done. Mr. Fenaro, I think, did want to ask Mr. Smolik to potentially have a service committee meeting prior to the next meeting. Okay.
6 o'clock or before the next meeting would work? Is that July 6th?
I think an hour will work. We have.
Rather have it sooner, Mr. Fernaro?
Yes, we have a PMG report that me and Doug were working on that we approved earlier in the year to do a pilot program for 10 miles of road. So we want to roll that out to you before we get into road discussion, actually dive into what our maintenance is, what our reconstruction involves. So I think an hour.
Which day would work? Would hour before the next meeting, or would you rather do it sooner?
Whenever council can make it.
I don't have that in front of me. Is that myself? Mr. Fenstermaker, are you on that one also? Service? I'm trying to think who else was on service. Regardless, I'll put an email out today. Right now, tentatively, we'll look at 6 o'clock before the next meeting. That was July 6th, I believe. Get email, get everybody's okay and that they're available for. Anything else, Mayor? Any other council comments? Any other continuing concerns? Anybody from the public like to speak? Motion for adjournment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second.
Seconded by Mr.